Hey, it's Dan from Mixture Rich, and it's been a while since I've done any videos related to my flight simulator. And as you can see, keep calm and boldly go is during the time of COVID-19. So a little bit more time on my hands, or anyway, maybe a little bit more creative space to do things. Something that I've always wanted to do with my flight simulator for the longest time is to be able to build myself an overhead trim device. I fly a Cherokee in real life, and I have an overhead trim. So all of this time with my simulator, I've been using a rolling trim, the Cytec trim, and I really wanted to have this overhead trim, and I thought, you know what, it can't be that complicated a project to do, really. I mean, at the end of the day, all it requires is a handle and a box to support it, and a rotary encoder that I've got linked back into a USB board that I already had anyway, that I used to modify my Cytec yoke, and then a little bit of fiddling and trial and error to get some settings correct, set up in FSUIPC on prepared, and bingo, it works great. So anyway, my setup is Lockheed Martin prepared. I'm still running version 3.4. I've had it stable and set up for me for a long time. I like leaving it alone because it works and it helps me with my in-between flights. When I'm not out in the real world flying, I can stay current on my flying. And I've got my setup in a way that everything is functionally positioned more or less the way I have it in the aircraft. And this has been the final edition here, or maybe one of the final editions, but certainly one that makes it much more realistic for me. So let me show you a bit more about it. So first off, here's my setup. Yes, this entire frame, it's very hard to see because I've got dark paint in here, is built upon an old elliptical exercise trainer. I recovered all of the steel bits and that to make a nice platform. And I've got a seat out of a BMW X3, and I've got proper power going into it so I can control all of the directions of the seat, up, down, forward and backward, and it's very comfortable for flying. Certainly more comfortable than flying my actual aircraft. Nonetheless, I've got triple screen set up for the main view. I've got another screen here set up for my gauges. I've got a lot of Cytec equipment here for you know, buttons and radios and throttle mixture controls and whatnot. I also have a nice little touch screen set up here where I've got my GTN 650 Garmin GPS unit as well, so that's really nice to have as well. That's more or less a recent addition as well. My screen here is run off of this laptop over here, so that takes some load off of my main computer, which is down here in this corner. And like I said earlier on, my main addition recently is this trim wheel, an overhead trim. It's a little crude right now because I've got it set up on some plumbing ABS just to get the correct location. I might do something a little bit more permanent, maybe attached to my wall or my ceiling or something like that and extending outward or downward. But nonetheless, it is positioned correctly for me right now. As you can see, I've used a typical electrical junction box, and that's a round plate that hooks up to a junction box. And I ordered this handle off of Amazon, which is basically a window handle off of a truck, if I'm not mistaken. And attached to that is a knob that came with the rotary encoder. I drilled a hole through that knob that's made out of steel, and I made it so that I could put a screw from the underside here so that it attaches into that knob. And then you must be wondering why there's an elastic band and going over to another rotary wheel there. That is just to create realistic tension. That's the only reason. So I've got it so that rubber band spins on a little plastic disc that's rubbing against a felt pad, and it gives me just enough tension in there so that it doesn't freewheel, essentially. So it feels more or less like it does in the aircraft. So basically, I'm going to show you something. So, I mean, this is fairly obvious right here that I can spin it. And then if I look down here on my control panel, I can observe that trim going up or going down, just like that. And it works like normally in my aircraft. I've also set up here as a little added bonus, this rotary encoder also had a push button, so I set it up to be able to reset my trim. So if I just basically push up from here, tuk, tuk, like that, this will set to center the trim. So watch this, click, and it jumps back into place here. That's a nice little feature to recenter the trim. Now, of course, that's not realistic in the aircraft. That would be nice, but it's certainly helpful in the flight simulator to do a quick reset on the trim. So here I am doing some left-hand circuits on runway 25 of Ottawa's International Airport. That's CYOW, and you'll probably notice I'm already using the trim. It's really nice to have it located as I have it in the actual aircraft in my Cherokee, and this has been a resounding success, I have to say. I was quite surprised at how nicely it can be programmed through FSUIPC and get it calibrated just right so that the number of spins corresponds accurately to the actual trim that I use in the aircraft. So as you can probably observe, it's nice and smooth. I can make nice fine adjustments and so forth, and I really encourage that if you enjoy simulation and you do fly aircraft that have an overhead trim, that this is a fairly easy project to do. I'm going to put in the description below the video links to the things that you will need, namely that I've attached it to a USB joystick board, which is the Leo Bodnar 0836, and I already had that board included inside of my SciTech yoke. One of my previous videos on this channel shows a modification I made there to improve the aileron and elevator response, and I used that board. I had the additional pins available for that in that board to do a rotary encoder, and I will leave links to a rotary encoder with a push button that I bought off of Amazon really cheaply, and also the links to the handle that I bought that you can see here, and everything else is just hardware parts that you can find. So enjoy, smash a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, and let me know how things are going in the comments.